of wine. I just want to maybe capitalize on that. So one of the Gospels are called the Synoptics. The Synoptics are Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And the Synoptics means they're kind of interwoven, and they cover the same things, and they all were written probably within 10 years of each other, probably within 10 to 15 years of the death of Jesus. But the Gospel of John actually isn't written until 85 or 90 AD. So it's written like 30 or 50 years later. John's an old man. So John's Gospel is not a synoptic gospel because John has something different in mind. And John's Gospel is actually written for believers. Remember I told you Matthew is written for a Jewish audience. Mark is written for a Roman audience. That's why there's no genealogy. He's a servant. Luke is written for the rest of the Gentiles who are impacted by the Greek culture. So he's a very sophisticated gospel. Luke is, he's a professional. He's a physician and a historian, essentially. So he gives us Luke and the book of Acts. And he does it, it's the last gospel written because he's traveling with Paul. And an interesting side note is he wrote the gospel when Paul was in prison at Caesarea. Remember Caesarea? So Paul had to appear before Felix and Festus, and he was in prison there. And so what did Luke do? He came and probably talked to Mary and eyewitnesses. He said, I've done that. But John's gospel is different because John doesn't call what the other writers call miracles. He never calls them miracles. You know what he calls them? He calls them signs. So he says the first sign that Jesus performed. And what is it a sign of? It's a sign of he is God and he's creating a whole new race of people. That's really important. When we get to the upper room, we're going to the upper room. I'll elaborate on that a little bit. But what he's doing is he's creating a whole new race of people. And this gospel is actually put together in such a way. There are actually 7 miracles. The very first is turning the water into wine. The last is raising Lazarus from the dead, besides his own resurrection. But raising Lazarus. So and he lays out these 7 signs because he's saying to us, this is a whole new family. It's a whole new kingdom. And the whole idea of wine is, this is new wine. He's turning water into wine to show that, the drinking of this wine that he makes, this is a whole new kingdom and a whole new race of people that are going to come from him. So that's kind of how John lays out the gospel. All right?
So what we're going to climb up and get to that church. It is a church of the 5th century that the Crusaders had renewed. And remember, same place is where the disciples got together 50 days later. And Pentecost had happened. So this is a place of 2 events. We're going up. Yes?
What's the distance between here and the Garden of Gethsemane?
I guess about 2, maybe 3 miles.
Okay, so they all
Walk back and forth. Not an easy walk. No.
So the way it went was from the Garden of Gethsemane,
Up to here.
right, to here, back to the Garden of Gethsemane, then he was arrested there, then back to close to here again, right?
Yeah.
All in
Yeah.
one night.
Oh. Lots of walking.
And then from here to the capital, Praetorian, then to Herod, then back to the capital, Antonia Fortress.
Let's go up.
Maybe.
About the political
I need to know the first baptism. Your first baptism? Okay. Yeah. I only have 2 of those, so I want to make sure you get it. Anyone else? First baptism? No.